And welcome everyone to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
And we come to you every week, normally doing a podcast here. We're on video, we're on YouTube, we're on our streamingchurch.tv website. And we work with churches and ministries, and we do lots of things. And we've been doing this for many, many moons. So we're glad to have you. If this is your first time listening or watching us, thanks so much. I apologize for the way I look, but let's just move on. So today, Steve and I have a special guest. We actually have two. This is the value you get when you listen to our podcast. We have not one guest today, but we have two. And we have Matt Lombardi, who is the CEO. He didn't want to be called CEO, but that's what he is. He's the CEO. He's the founder of Shaar. And we'll tell you about what that is. It's actually spelled Shaar, but they're pronouncing it Shaar, like the gal that used to be with Sonny and Cher. And then we also have Rachel Baird. And Rachel's with us, and she's a part of Shaar, and she's actually the customer success person here. So, if this company is successful, we can point to Rachel, right, Rachel?
Maybe.
100%.
All right. So guys, thank you so much for being our guest today on the Church Solutions Podcast. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having us. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And just for people to know, Matt is on Pacific time. You're in California?
I'm in Washington State, actually.
That's
yeah,
in
Central
Washington State. And then Rachel is actually in Florida.
Yes, I am. It's actually cold here today. It's exciting.
Oh. What part of Florida are you in?
I'm in Palm Harbor, so I'm right by Clearwater Beach.
Okay. All right. Okay. And what city are you in, Matt?
I'm up in Yakima, Washington. So think the exact opposite of everything you know about the Pacific Northwest. Instead of being rainy and liberal, it is very dry and very conservative where we are. So a lot of people don't know it exists, but we love it here.
All right.
And it's
all right, good.
About as far as you can get from Rachel, right? And staying in the U.S. without
unless I went to Alaska.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we want to talk to you about Shaar. And your website, I'll just get it out there. We'll talk about that, your website later, but it's Shaar. Well, I'm calling it Shaar, but it's SHAAR.WORK. That's the website. That's the domain. You pronounce it Shaar. So this is really unique. And we thought that this would be a great opportunity for people involved in ministry and church work to learn more about you guys. So I'm going to kick off the first question, and I'll let Steve follow up with things. What in the world, what do you guys do, and why should we care?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Shaar is the first ever marketplace where churches and ministries can connect with freelance creative talent. Really simple. So if you think of other things are out there that do something similar, like Upwork or Fiverr, if you've ever heard of those, but those aren't really structured for the way ministries and churches work. I had a background in church. I've been actually in ministry since I was 18 years old. I'm 31 now. And I just realized that churches work a lot different and have a lot different needs than every other business out there or every other organization out there. And so we wanted to create something where churches could intentionally connect, hire, pay, do the entire transaction process with a freelancer who can help their church all online, all on one platform. So that's what Shaar is.
Wow, that sounds really interesting.
I was really excited to have you guys on because, and I guess I got to mix it up. I am from Texas and moved to California for a long time, and now I'm in Arizona. So I mix up my y'alls, which in Florida would be y'all, and you guys, which would be up in Washington. So you guys are gonna challenge me both ways. So I was really excited having y'all guys on, and
I got to work that into my vocabulary, y'all guys.
Because I have used, owning a tech company, and I have used other systems like Upwork. I found the best talent through that process. And so for those that haven't hired someone remotely or virtually, what is the process? And, most people are saying, well, I got people in my church, they got to get into my church, they got to show up, and I got to interview them and, see how they dress and all this stuff. But with Shaar.work, it's completely different, right? And much easier, if I must add. So tell us, how does the model work? If I'm a pastor of a church and I need admin help, but I can't afford a full-time person.
Yeah, it's incredibly simple, or at least we tried to make it simple, right? So it's as simple as going on, creating a profile, takes 2 minutes, right? Email, name, basic information about your church. Then what you'll do is you'll actually just post it as a project. So you say, hey, we need admin support. How many hours you need, what skills you're looking for. So we, give you the ability to say, yeah, I need them to know Microsoft Word, or they need to know G Suite, or they need to know MailChimp, or whatever the skills you're looking for are. Write up a short description, and then you're going to post it on our platform. And what will happen then is all of our freelancers who have those admin skills will get an immediate email alert that says, hey, someone's posted this new project. You should go apply for it. And typically what we're seeing is churches actually getting, we had someone post yesterday a graphic design job. Within an hour, they had 6 people who had already applied from across the country, who were all experts in that field, who all had served in churches, loved Jesus, knew the church. So it's really that simple. And then as soon as you're ready to get started, you just select, hey, whose portfolio, whose profile looks like it fits us the best. You can look at reviews of the work they've done in the past to see, okay, what's it like to work with them. And then really simple, you can pay everything on the platform and get started by hitting, start project. So it's really just that simple of just post what you need and get started working with them.
So what about with some of the other systems? What do I pay? Do I post if I'm the pastor, do I post, I'm willing to pay this much, or is that negotiable, or do I get better talent if I put a higher rate, or, how's that piece of it work?
Rachel, you're a customer success person, so I'd love for you to speak to that for a few minutes.
So right now we just have a button that you press. It's literally this easy, and it pops up and it says, I believe it's for $29. They get a consultation with one of us and we'll help them scope out the project. So we can usually help answer some of those questions. Right now, also the way it is on the profiles, you can see kind of what each person's scope is, and you can see they're leveled at expert, intermediate, and beginner. So if you're looking for a project that you need done quickly with like really high level footage or something like that, you would be looking for an expert video editor, for example. And some of that we have put out on our blog. So we're trying to put out blog content that every single week people can look at and get a better understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and how they're going to do that on the platform and just in general. But right now, that is how we're structuring things.
Yeah, and to speak to that as well, Steve, one of the things that we're really excited for with Shaar is that this is the first time that we know of that the church is going to have transparent pricing around the services that they need done, right? So in the past, you would go try to work with a digital agency or find an independent contractor, and you interview them and they say, well, this is my rate, and it's kind of arbitrarily set. There's no clear, it would take a lot of work for a church to interview 5 or 6 different people, see, okay, what's your hourly rate? What should we be paying? What shouldn't we be paying? Whereas now with Shaar, when you start getting these proposals from freelancers, you see right on their profile what their hourly rate is. So you can actually compare, okay, let me look at this person's portfolio. What work have they done? How much do they charge an hour? And really get the best bang for your buck as a church and have that true transparent pricing, as opposed to it just being kind of murky and undefined. Churches can also set their budget of, hey, we want to pay this month or this much for this month, or we want to pay this much for this project or hourly rate. So they can actually set in advance how much they want to pay or kind of say what their project is. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful or not.
So, and then the talent would have the ability to say, well, I'm not interested for that rate.
Exactly.
And so you're going to get, so talent wise, is it US? Is it international? Where does the talent come from?
All of our talent currently is United States based. And so and most of that talent is actually going to be folks who have been on church staffs in the past. When we started recruiting talent, really focusing on people who were currently in ministry, who kind of wanted a side hustle, for lack of a better term. As you guys probably know, working with churches, and as someone who works in a church currently, churches don't always pay the best. And so, we're always kind of looking for a way, okay, how can I supplement this? And so my big vision was, man, how awesome would it be if someone who works on a church staff in Illinois can add another $200, $300, $400 into their pocket each month that allows them to go on a vacation with their wife, allows them to take their kids to Disney, while at the same time serving a church in California. What a beautiful view of what the kingdom can be, that we're able to use people who are already employed in ministry, who get the church, to actually help other churches.
Yeah. So actually with my company and with your company, obviously you're in Washington and Rachel's in Florida. Do so you get to see Rachel every couple of months, and but it's not that way, right? You're talking to her every day, so it kind of freaks out people too as well, because we've hired people from all over the country, and people are like, well, how does that work? How do you deal with somebody that you never see? I have employees that I've never seen, so in person, other than through video. What are the pitfalls or that? What should I look out for? Or why is that not a problem? If I'm a pastor, I'm used to, you post an ad in the classifieds and people show up, and it's, people know where the town, and they know my city, and they know these things. I'm going to be picking up somebody that may not know this town at all, or much less my ministry. What are the pitfalls and advantages for hiring somebody in a remote type of sense?
Rachel, you've written a lot on this, so I'll let you handle the pitfalls if you want to, and then I can kind of come in and be the good guy and tell them why it's a good thing.
So, I mean, the pitfalls are sometimes it's more difficult to keep on top of people getting their work done. And there's the possibility that they might not know about your town or your ministry, but that's pretty easily fixed with giving them the information you already give to your visitors. Most churches have a pretty decent idea of what they're putting out to their visitors. They have their about page, they have their mission. And really and truly, when you bring on staff, even they're local, there's a million churches in most places. I mean, I'm in Florida, so there's a million churches here, like within 1 square mile. They're like more populous than Starbucks, but every church is a little bit different. So you still have the same things that you would be teaching them if they were in the building. They're just not in the building. And most of the time, even when they are in the building, they're literally emailing you or dropping in Dropbox to you what it is that they're doing anyway. So you're still online. You're just online under the same roof.
Yeah. One of the potential, I think, huge opportunities with this, Steve, is that almost every data point is shown, especially through COVID-19, but also pre-COVID-19, that remote workers are far more efficient at their work than in person. If you're tracking hourly your work, freelancers tend to get the work done in the time they say. And so it really is more efficient for churches to work this way. The other it's a challenge, but it's also the biggest opportunity, I think, is communication. So for working, in a church, if you're under the same roof, it's super easy if there isn't clarity around a big event or a big project, just to pop next door and say, hey, let's hash this out and sit there for 30 minutes, and maybe we talk a little bit about this and that, and finally we get a little bit of work done. And so that communication is a little more difficult when you're working remote. But what it forces you as a church to do is actually start to create healthier systems and processes around communication that actually are going to help your church grow long term. So, for example, one of the churches that is a client that works through Shaar, they've actually started using a project management tool, because when they work with a freelancer, they realize they need to set clear expectations and communicate those expectations of, hey, what digital assets do we need for this event that's coming up? And we need to know that 3 or 4 weeks in advance, because we can't expect just to pop into that person's office the day before and say, hey, Brad, what's going on, man? Like, I need you to pull 4 extra hours right now and get it done right now. That's not the way it works in working with a remote team. So while it is a challenge to communicate and set those clear expectations for how you get work done as a church, it's actually a massive opportunity to become far more effective at your ministry. So I think that's the huge potential. And then honestly, just the access now that churches have to talent that they could never get in person. So for example, one of our freelancers is one of the social media folks at Elevation Church. And so Elevation Church, everyone knows it, huge. The idea of a rural church in Iowa, being able to hire that quality of talent and move them to Iowa, pretty low, right? Like that's probably not going to happen. Creatives tend to centralize around large urban hubs. But what if that church in Iowa could get that person for 2 hours a week, right? Like the access to new types of talent that technology can bring, I think, is pretty massive. So those would be some of the advantages, I think.
So there's, I'm sure there's a common set of roles that you fill, and then there's probably a real surprising set of roles that you fill as well. What are some of the most common, and then what's the oddest role that you've managed to fill that people go like, how did they do that?
Yeah. Rachel, you want to speak to some of the more common ones?
Some of the more common ones. We write blog posts so that people could figure out who we are. We write emails. We explain to churches and to freelancers what our services are.
Rachel, in
And
terms
running the
of just
common
the
ones.
way that, like, just the sort of projects people post on the platform. Yeah. Like the
freelance
categories we have.
jobs. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant what we fill as our roles in the company.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of video editing requests. Graphic design is very popular. We're starting to see more of people interested in the content. People are starting to realize that content is really important. You can't just throw stuff out in social media. Social media marketing and managing as well. We're offering social media audits right now. So if you want to have someone review quickly your social media, if you want to manage it yourself and give you an idea of what you should be putting together, how you should be strategizing as you put things out on social media, those are sort of the mainstream ones right now.
Yeah. And then as far as the weirdest kind of most random one, we had a person post that they were looking for a virtual reality online experience built around a Christian album release. So they wanted it to be like an art gallery where you walked in and all their album art from previous albums was on the wall in a virtual reality experience. And they needed a coder who knew virtual reality to be able to do that. So that would be by far the most like slightly off the wall, but innovative thing, right? Very innovative thing that's kind of happened on the platform. So that was a lot of fun.
So we do, provide live streaming for churches, and kind of our niche is we try to replicate the experience of coming to church online. And so there's roles that are filled. We have, greeters, or we call them web hosts, or online pastors and things like that. So there's, we really encourage churches to have a really robust experience online with, incorporating things with like greeters and web hosts and keeping the conversations going and things like that. I would think I'd be able to pick up a web host through Shaar.work for my church. Is that a role that's filled? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that it's a great idea. I need to steal that idea and run with it. We don't have them right now, but the great thing about Shaar is we actually have this great pool of several hundred freelancers who, a lot of them are folks who are saying, hey, technology is changing the church at a rapid pace, and they're willing to learn. They're the folks who are saying, hey, maybe this isn't something the church has needed before, but now it is. And we tend to skew a little bit younger as far as our freelancers, 20 somethings, 30 somethings. So those are folks who are pretty tech savvy and tend to say, yeah, I can pick that up really quick and become an expert pretty quickly with it. So web hosts for online services, huge opportunity, I think, for what we're doing. So thanks for the business idea, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. When you get it going, let us know. We'll definitely market it to our people.
So,
Phil, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, well, let me just jump in. Let me back the tape up a little bit. When did you guys actually start Shaar.work?
Yeah, so idea in September of 2019. So this is all pre-COVID, right? I pitched the idea to a few church leaders I knew, a few kind of senior pastors at larger churches, and they all said, yeah, church people never work remote. And and then COVID-19 happened, and so we officially incorporated in January. So actually, even still before kind of the and then we launched the official product or platform in the end of March, and then started onboarding churches in June. So it's still very, very new. We're still, we just openly say we're a startup. We're trying to learn from churches and ministries of, hey, what do you need? And so as we hear folks say, hey, this is what we think the future of the church could look like and the team members we need, we want to be kind of the central place that helps the church build towards the teams of the future.
Wow. So the COVID-19 issue is actually, I mean, maybe helped jumpstart you guys a little bit.
Yeah, I feel bad saying that, but the timing was providential, to say the least. So,
yeah, well, I mean, there's silver linings and all sorts of things,
absolutely.
And so, and I'm just curious now, Rachel, you're in Florida, and Matt Lombardi, you are in Washington State. How did you guys? How do you guys hook up, and what's the deal there?
Rachel, you want to let them know?
Yeah, so Matt had reached out to several people on LinkedIn to be freelancers, and I got his email that was like, would you be interested in freelancing for a church? And I'm the weirdo that's like, hey, like, I see a phone number. I'm just going to call this person. Yeah. So I did. And then Matt and I had a conversation, and I went over what he had done, because at that point we were completely in beta. So everything was just being tested. So I went through and I was like, hey, I have an idea about this, and I might have found a spelling error here. And I sent him like 3 pages long of notes. And then Matt was like, hey, since you just invested all this time here and you seem to know what you're doing, maybe you should help me. And then I jumped on board.
Yeah, and that's been the story for a lot of our team so far, Phil, is we have several folks who have kind of hopped on who started as either freelancers or they found out about it and have just been crazy passionate about what we're doing and said, hey, you don't even have to pay me. Like, can I help? Like, I'm not asking for a job. Like, we just love what you're doing. And we want to be a part of this. So God's been really, really good to us in that sense.
And that's amazing. Go ahead, Steve.
So if I'm a pastor and I'm not too sure about this yet.
Yeah.
Is there a way for me to test the waters? Do I need to invest a bunch of money to say, I need slides done. I don't know what it would be for this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, do I need $300 to figure out if this person's going to work? Or, I mean, I assume so if I wanted to try, I could just, like you said, just create an account. I don't have to put a credit card in yet. No. When do I pay? Can I post a job without paying?
Yeah. So great questions. Definitely. I say always encourage churches to test the waters on it. We get that what we're doing is kind of a radical new way for churches to work. And so that's going to take time for churches to say, okay, we trust that this can work. So always recommend something really small. Honestly, Rachel already mentioned it. Our big kind of thing that we're pushing right now, just because so many churches are kind of always wondering in the back of their mind, are we doing this well enough? Is something really simple like a social media audit, right? It's usually around $125, kind of smallish project. You could even go smaller if you have, say you need a small group curriculum written in it. Just needs to be small group questions for the week. Cool. Hire someone that may cost you $30 or $40. And so you can post that project for free, no credit card. You actually do not pay until the project is completed, and you're totally satisfied with the work. The way that our system is set up right now is we do actually, once you post the project, once you hire the person, what we do is we'll take the full amount that for the project, so say it's $50, and it'll actually go into an escrow account that we own. So that's held there securely. And so that way the freelancer knows, hey, the church is good for the money. I'm not going to do all the work and then not get anything. But the church knows, okay, this money is not released to the freelancer until we're 100% satisfied with the project being completed. Another fun thing that we've added is a feature where freelancers will offer you how many revisions you get on the project. So that makes it even less risk. So a church says, well, what if I don't like it the first time? Okay, that's great, because a lot of freelancers are offering 3, 4, 5 revisions to make sure you're happy with what you get. And yet again, you don't pay until you're actually happy and you've left a review and you say, hey, this is a great experience.
Yeah, that's great.
And I want to just remind everybody what Steve said at the beginning. And this has been going on for years in secular organizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you guys are doing is you're taking Christians and you're trying to enable the church.
Absolutely.
And make it work for the church. Go ahead, Steve.
So, I mean, you guys are just starting out, but some of the more mature systems out there there's like ratings for the people that did the jobs. I did a job. Can I give them 5 stars or 4 stars, or say, hey, they dropped the ball or whatever? And I assume that affects their reputation for a future job. And so you have those components built in as
100%.
Well?
Yep. Just like the stuff you'd see out there for Upwork or Fiverr. It's all there. The reality is that's the big challenge. Is the gig economy has never been intentionally integrated into the church. It's always been happening. We all know that contract work happens all the time for churches. Mm-hmm. We all know churches are constantly using freelancers. There just hasn't been a central place to build trust and transparency into that process. And so that's all we're trying to do.
So I assume another challenge that you have as a company would be people trying to use your services for free and go around you. Find that great freelancer and go, hey, I'll pay you under the table and we'll do this.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I guess you just got to build into your systems to try to discourage. And we're working, one of the things that we've found working with the church is they're very reputable.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like there's a code of ethics or something.
Yeah, there's a code of ethics, which makes it just really good.
Right,
so
right.
as opposed to
one fun thing, Steve and Phil, this is to totally nerd out, so feel free to cut this out of the interview if you want. We've actually figured out, we're talking to some really good attorneys, that by using Shaar for your freelancers or 1099 contractors, even if you already have them on staff, you're going to save a lot of headache, because by using Shaar, you actually don't ever have to send a 1099 as a church. So because we're a third-party payment processor, the church only ever gets a charge from Shaar Inc., and then the freelancer only ever gets a charge from Shaar Inc., meaning that entire messy process of sending out 1099s and how things are getting reported, or do we need to claim as a part-time employee, all that stuff is now taken off the table. And so it's a lot easier. It's literally as simple as swiping a credit card or a debit card to pay someone. There's no more administrative backend. So for churches, we're just saying you could go off platform, but you're not paying anything extra to use us. All the kind of transaction fee is charged to the freelancer, and we're actually making your life a lot easier administratively of not having to worry about some of this stuff. So
yeah. No doubt. So look, we're about running out of time here. We're talking with Matt Lombardi and Rachel Baird from Shaar. So tell me, how can these guys get a hold of you? How can people listening to this podcast or wherever they're hearing it at, what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
Yeah. So I, against the better advice of all of our advisors and all good business advice, I give out my personal phone number because I love getting text messages. I love getting random phone calls from people who are interested in what we're doing as Shaar. So I will literally give out my my personal phone number. It is 863-521-2439. That is my personal phone. You can call me, text me. It may take me a minute to respond because I have a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. But I like to give that out. You can always, of course, email us, info@shaar.work. I am super active on LinkedIn. That is kind of my social media platform of choice. Rachel is as well. We're both very active over there. So LinkedIn is another great place. And you can always go on the website. There's a nice little chat box that if you can sit there.
And tell us how to spell Shaar, just because, again, if it's guys like me listening to this and going, Shaar, C-H-E, but that's not how you spell it. Yeah,
exactly. There have been a lot of fun kind of Shaar GIFs and memes sent back and forth between Rachel and I, but it's SHAAR.work, WORK. So that's the website. If you put that into your browser, it'll take you right to us.
Awesome. Right. Good deal.
And you are ministry centered, focused. I mean, do you do outside the ministry or is it primarily just ministry?
Our focus really is on ministries. That's the world. I know that's literally, I work as a pastor of digital innovation at a church currently. So like ministry is the world that we know. And so we're focused on ministries, but if you're, a faith-based business and you really want someone who kind of shares a similar mission as you to work with, always open to it, always welcome to it. But we are kind of targeted on churches and ministries specifically right now.
All right. Good deal. Sounds great.
All right, good. Awesome. So folks, if you missed all that information and you don't want to back the tape up, you can always reach out to us. We're streamingchurch.tv, and you can always send us an email to support@streamingchurch.tv, and we'll pass on this information to Matt as well as Rachel here. Guys, thank you so much for being our guest today. This is exciting. I'm actually I'm really excited about this.
Thanks so much for having us. We're excited about it too, to say the least.
Yeah, good deal. Yeah, I was just thinking, back when I was executive pastor many moons ago, this church Steve was at. I remember I had to find somebody to subcontract for some stuff that I couldn't do, and that was a long time ago. So now it sounds like Shaar.work will make things a lot easier for guys like me that were in that position. So good deal. All right, good. Well, look, we're out of time. Again, thank you so much. Matt Lombardi and Rachel Baird, and Steve Lacy is here with us. And so I'm Phil Thompson. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today on the Church Solutions Podcast. We appreciate it. And please take care of yourself. We will catch you again next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.